Yo, what's going on, people? Welcome again to the C Suit podcast, where we talk about all things sports. Today, we're back again for another episode of the NBA basketball talk show. I'm joined by a number of guests just to discuss a number of issues. We're going to be focusing on mental health. A few weeks ago, we saw Kyrie Irving kind of go missing, missed a few games. He came back out 2 weeks later stating mental health. Mental health has been like a recently trending topic over the past maybe 2-3 years. In the past, it wasn't really discussed, especially among men. If let's say we discuss mental health, people might take men as being soft, but then over the past maybe 2-3 years, there's been kind of like a shift into where people are open, especially men are more open to talking about the mental health issues. Why is mental health taboo, especially among sports stars? What kind of causes this? What can we do in sports to actually make sure players, professional athletes open up more to talk about the situations? More specifically, the NBA. What can be done? What can Adam Silver do? What can he do to kind of help players? At the end of the day, players are just like us. They go through the same issues, they go through the same stresses. Even though they might be multimillionaires, we all have the kind of same issues. So what can be done? Is there a case where the sports teams, the NBA teams can, maybe use a sports psychologist? Or is the onus on the players to kind of invest in their mental health, guide their mental health? Also, social media has been a big thing. Obviously, players kind of check social media, see what fans are saying about them. After every game, they go on Twitter, they go on Instagram to see, what fans are saying about the performances. I can players guard against this because obviously, some players might not be able to deal with negative comments from fans, from media personnel. So what can be done, on this? I'm Victor, your host. Enjoy the show. Kyrie's situation, to be honest, like the fact that he's second in voting with fans, I'm actually really shocked by that. Also, given what he did at kind of start of season when you say AWOL, I'm like, fans actually, actually vote for this guy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm a bit shocked by that though.
Do you think it's because of his press conference where he basically came out and he just kind of spoke about his feelings and what he was doing for the community and how he was stressed, and maybe in that case people were just a bit more sympathetic, towards him, and they felt like, this guy is, he's a human being and he has his issues, and now he's owning up to it. He said, listen, I gotta take responsibility for my community, etc., etc., etc.
I feel like that's probably as well. Since he's been back, like he's actually been playing pretty good actually. But then, to me personally, I was just really surprised that he's that high in voting. And yeah, I just feel like maybe fans maybe did feel a bit sorry for him as well. To be like, especially like we said last time when mental health was involved as well, fans would be like, wait a second, this guy's actually human. He's actually going through like a lot as well. So let's kind of give him a kind of like leeway. But I think that's probably as well. But let's say a next player comes and be like mental health. Can we actually use mental health for everybody nowadays? Like,
I think just because it's something new and fresh, I'm guessing in the basketball scene anyway, it's new, it's fresh, it's not really a topic that's been talked about too much. There will be situations where maybe a lot of people might come out about it, and then we need to start evaluating how do we deal with these situations. It's up to the club really to look at their player and assess them, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter about the fans. It's the club, the general managers and the doctors over there that says, he does have an issue, or we believe in this issue, or we've had our specialists talk to him and they can confirm that there is he's going through something. So I think it's going to get a bit more that field anyway in terms of mental health with players is going to get bigger. Now, one thing we can say is that we actually don't know if players already seen their own special doctors, like outside of the NBA. So I don't know if the NBA has specialists to talk to players. I wouldn't be surprised if like maybe a LeBron James says, I talked to someone, I have a doctor, I talked to him about my issues. Do you get what I'm trying to say in that sense? So I think it's something that maybe the fans were not aware of before, and it's something that we're going to find out a bit more in the future.
Let's say, I don't know, like our next player from whatever team comes and be like, I'm going to wait for 2 weeks because of mental health. So like, when do we start stopping? Like, wait a second, we can't always be using mental health can we always be using that as a kind of like a, get out of a jail card kind of like thing, you know what I'm saying?
It's tough it's not like someone's physical health where you can do an assessment and be like, based on the tests, there's a 50% chance this is going to go well, this is going to go bad. Mental health it's a case by case thing as well, so it can spawn up at any time. You don't have to be playing any games for things to happen. It could be personal reasons or whatever. So honestly, it's a very serious matter. And if a player comes forward and is like, look, I really need some downtime, then put it this way, if that's the first time they're asking for that, I say give it to them. Now, if it becomes something of a regular basis, then you can at least say, okay, look, maybe you can suggest like, hey, talk to somebody, or, our organization has a, let's say, therapist or whatever, you can use this option or whatever it is. But initially at the start, I think you shouldn't be questioning them too much. It's a very sensitive topic, so at least let them take that time off. Usually it should help the first time around. If it doesn't, then obviously, yeah, it becomes more serious and you can start availing of different opportunities and options to the player and all that. But the first time, I think you should just give it to them. Plus, especially with this pandemic scene, you're putting these players under a lot of pressure, being tested twice a day, away from their family. Everyone is breaking, but at different paces. So I wouldn't be surprised if after this season, if it turns out that, the interview players and they're like, yeah, and back in March, I'd met my end. I was basically broken down, or this month or that week. I wouldn't be surprised. Plus, they're playing a lot more games. So it's the physical and mental health is being tasked way well beyond what they've ever done before. So
do you see a situation where this is going to become a lot more frequent? Because I always feel like players want to play, and people do have I feel like if you have an issue, you will bring it out, and yes, you will take the time off that's needed or whatever it may be. But it's very, very hard for me to imagine somebody taking the piss out of this situation. If you get what I'm trying to say, like I can't think of somebody who's been dying to get into the NBA, who wants to, keep his stats up, who cares about everything to do with sports, been playing this since he was a kid or whatever, to then get there and just be like, I just want time off now. I don't know if that's something that's going to become frequent. I don't think so.
I get you, and there's a counter argument to that at the same time. That's unlikely to happen, that they will take piss. But there's also a very, very slight possibility that they might do that as well, given, let's say, for instance, that the next 3 games were against low-level teams. So they're like, well, it's not really going to have much impact. So they might, if they were to take the piss, then they would do that, disappear for like those 3 games, come back, play a big standing team, do well, and everyone's going to be like, oh, wow, yeah, credit to you and all this kind of stuff. But I don't see people taking the piss. Like your income's on the line, your stats are on the line. These are all things that affect negotiations going forward. So you wouldn't want to neglect that.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, you have to agree with that. Like I can't see anybody really take advantage of it. Like I see more people maybe speaking about it. Like Kyrie hasn't really spoken about it, but the one player who has is Kevin Love over a few years ago. But in sports in general, not many people talk about their mental health. So it's an issue that doesn't come up. It might affect people. Maybe people need time off, and doctors and stuff could be involved, and teams could look at that support for people. But it's just good to get people talking about it, and that even though these are strong personalities who earn millions, that they do have the same kind of issues that the everyday person might have in terms of struggling with mental health. So the fact that it's out there more might support other people as well to maybe get help and go forward with it, and not use it as something to use it to your advantage.
When it comes to the whole mental health thing, I never really, I didn't look too much into it. The players though that I felt had this were basically players that were very injury prone. Like you can imagine if you're a player and you're supposed to be a star or whatever, and then you get injured in January, you come back in April, injured again, come back in August, injured again, December, like someone like a Jack Wilshere or Diaby. I always assumed those guys would have specialists talking to them, because that's mentally taxing to be always injured, always be on the injury bed, watching your teammates play. So when I always thought about players having mental health, I always instantly thought about the players who are injury prone.
I'm actually going to say I could blame the media to an extent. NBA probes too much into your life, in my opinion, from as soon as you step on their radar, from high school or even before high school. They're always talking about you. Like if you tweet something, I can guarantee you go on the next day, type in NBA, ESPN, you're already there. You're being spoken about. Like sometimes obviously it's positive. Sometimes you might just say something small and it just blows out. And then they're asking you for post-game interviews. You just having interviews upon interviews. Everything you do is under a microscope. To an extent, like you're already a celebrity, so that's your private life already being invaded naturally. And then on top of that, like the media they just blow things out of proportion, And I think that as well could affect someone's mental health. You're trying to keep yourself stable on court, off the courts, but like at the end of every game, they're just there waiting for you. They'll pick on any little thing you say, any little thing. So I think that's actually even worse than the obviously the injury thing. That affects every player. If you're injured multiple times, you start to have doubt in yourself. But like I just think the media in general, just do one small bad thing, it's stuck with you in your career forever. They'll keep bringing it up, just doesn't end.
One argument against that would be like, this person was signed up for, and then that's just what the media is. And especially nowadays with like social media as well, it's like everything you do is just out there. Some people would argue like, you know what I'm saying, you know exactly what you signed up for, so you should should potentially be able to deal with that naturally anyway. You should be able to, find ways to actually deal with that. So I feel like, yeah, that's kind of like counter argument against
The first thing that came to my mind when you said, what you signed up for is you signed up for this and you're getting a 400K paycheck at the end of the week every single week. So if you don't like this trade, then forget it. You can go and do something else. So I get where you're coming from with that point.
But like compare it to like other sports, right? I think baseball, correct me if I'm wrong here, Stephen, you know this. Baseball players, they get paid more or less than NBA players.
Some of them get paid more, but they play 182 games a season.
Yeah, but I don't really see what players do after the game, like or tweets and stuff like that being blown out that much on the media. So like even in football, it's the same thing. You don't really see it that much. So are you saying because you have a higher salary, you're earning higher salary in general compared to other sports, that's allowable, that the media probes that much into your dealings? Is that what we're saying?
My team's okay. So for example, if you take like ESPN, right, they've got like rights to the NBA to actually broadcast games and all that stuff. Like that's a 24-hour news cycle. So they would look for even the tiniest thing to talk about. Again, like I said, with the social media age, players know this. So it's like if ESPN like paying the NBA to actually broadcast games, ESPN's won like 24 hours news to talk about players. They talk about like even the tiniest someone makes a tweet, that's like the next news in ESPN. So I feel like players should actually realize what's going on. So yeah, some players, yeah, that might affect the mental health, but I feel like they should be able to maybe deal with that.
You have three options. That's the case. You can either join the NBA or not, or you can actually two choices. You can join or not, or you can just decide to stay in the G League, which doesn't really get that much traction.
Well, you know what I'll say about that? Yeah, the first thing, the first point I would say is like, we can say these points, which is true about the media, but then the question is, well, who watches this? Like Tony, I'm sure you watch this as well. I've seen you watch some of these shows as well. I've watched some of these shows as well. But like, yeah, you would watch these shows about them talking about these players with little details or not. So the fact that you're watching it, ESPN knows people want this, so they will start doing it. So that's the first thing. As for the players, to be honest, you just need to learn how to tune out. Not go on YouTube, not go on Facebook, not go on Instagram. Like social media needs to be kind of blocked away from you in that sense. And if you don't know how to do that, well, you get 400K a week, so go pay someone to teach you how to do that.
Hire your own, say just hire someone to take over your social media.
No, hire someone to teach you to not care about social media that much, to tell you that like basically, look, social media is there and there's pros and cons for it. You don't need social media. You have your friends, you have your circle. Stick with that. Like
you have to think, how do we interact? We interact through like social media. That's our friend group. Like it's going to be the same for basketball players. Like they're going to interact with friends through Instagram or Twitter, or it's the same thing. It's just that social media is so new. Like in the past 15 years, that like not just players, the general public don't really know how to deal with it in terms of a mental health thing, of switching it off. So it would be good for mental health professionals to work with the players in terms of dealing with social media and everything. One per team, kind of dishing that out, because there's some former players out there, and even one person who comes off the top of my head is Tony Hawk. I know, not a basketball player, but even he said if he was in an era skating now, he'd absolutely hate it from all the stupid things he did all the time, being things blowing up on Facebook. He would have never got away with anything. He would have had a nightmare. So especially when the older players talk about social media, they never had to put up with the criticism 24/7 of millions of people on Twitter just bashing them. So it's hard to deal with, because it's still relatively new. Of what way do you go about it? How do you monitor your time on social media, taking things personally and everything? So it's to work with the teams and with the players and to promote that, and that the league can take a stance in terms of healthy behaviors online for players and teams, not like monitoring what they say, but helping players manage their time effectively and how it actually affects them, because it affects the general public too. I'm sure some people spend hours and hours every day on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram non-stop scrolling, and they're just like, oh, I'm depressed.
Turns out the NBA launched a mental health and wellness program in 2018. Yeah, so it seems like they're actually still kind of pushing this going forward. Like I haven't heard this season now, which obviously would be the toughest season, I would say, in the entire NBA. I haven't heard them bring it up, like maybe they're reminding players behind the scenes, like most likely, I guess. But yeah, they have something there, at least a program in place. Maybe they can do a lot more to promote it and keep it active in the players' minds as time goes on. But at least it's good to see that they have something.
I don't know. A part of me feels like, okay, let them know. But I guess I'm just looking at it from this point of view. Like I have 400K a week. Like, there's going to be a point in time where I need to go to the doctor myself and speak about these issues, where I need to take that first step. Now, I think it's great that the NBA does this, and they should, obviously, rightly so. But I do feel there is an onus as well on the players to go speak to somebody. Like, there's no point having a breakdown and then realizing, okay, I need to speak to somebody. Like, just go do it, like, go talk. I think the stigma of talking to someone is going away, and obviously it's on the NBA to kind of promote that a little bit more. I do feel the onus is on the players as well to go looking for help and also seeking these things, basically.
Yeah.
And I think the main question was, how does the NBA deal with like a players on the case, and where do they draw the line basically when it comes to these situations? And I think it's all a learning process.
Yeah.
It really is, and I think obviously the more cases that pop up, they're gonna learn on how to deal with it. There should never be a case of somebody taking a piss or using it to kind of get what they want. I don't think it's gonna happen. But if it is, it's just a bad stigma on the whole thing, because you make everybody look bad now, because now people are kind of questioning things. So I don't think it's gonna lead to that. But definitely as time goes on, we'll find out more details on how to deal with these things.